Happy Pride and welcome back to Book Break. I am dressed in a pride flag and trying not to strangle myself with this, but welcome to the best month of the year here on Book Break. I thought it'd be fun to ask my fellow Pride Network here at Macmillan to give you a bunch of their favourite book recommendations that you should read this month. And then I've got some recommendations for you as well, of course, because I always do. It wouldn't be a Book Break video if I didn't recommend you some books. But let's start with my esteemed colleagues. Let's dive straight in to Kieran, who's going to recommend you a literary love story.
Hi, my name's Kieran. I'm a senior comms exec at Picador Books. This Pride Month, I would love to recommend the book Anyone's Ghost by August Thompson, a cinematic bisexual love story for the ages. This follows the story of Theron and Jake. Theron is a boy living in New Hampshire, struggling to find his way in life, and then he meets Jake, who's older, cooler, likes the same music, likes the same drugs, and what happens is we follow their relationship over the course of 20 years, punctuated by 3 car crashes, the third which actually ends Jake's life. And that's not a spoiler, because it literally starts the book like that. This is gorgeous, this is perfect for those yearning summer romances. Think a punk dirtbag Call Me By Your Name, mixed with a bit of past lives, Swimming in the Dark, and Young Mungo. This is the perfect blazing bisexual summer read you need in your lives.
How good did Kieran make that book sound? I am so excited to read Anyone's Ghost now. I got to film him doing that clip and I shrieked at the end of it, thinking I have to read this book. It is out this summer, so I'm so excited for that one. But now, for a bit of a change of genre, Becky is going to recommend you a queer fantasy.
Hi, I'm Becky. I'm a marketing manager at Pan, and my book recommendation for Pride would be A Marvelous Light by Freya Marske. It's the first book in her Last Binding trilogy, and it's so good. It is a queer historical fantasy romance, so all of the best genres, basically. It's about one guy who becomes a sort of governmental liaison to magical society, and he has to deal with this grumpy guy who doesn't have a lot of magic. And together they get kind of embroiled in this situation where the non-magical guy gets cursed, so there's a big adventure, there's Edwardian manor houses. I think this is a really great pick for Pride because the sex scenes in it are great. It's a brilliant gay romance. It's really sweet and loving, but also spicy. So if you like those kinds of books, you'll definitely love this. And the trilogy as a whole is great. Each book in the trilogy follows a different couple, but the storyline continues throughout the 3 books. And Freya also has a new book coming out very soon called Sword Crossed, which I have a proof of here. This one is about an enemies to lovers bodyguard romance with some sexy fencing lessons. So that should sell you 100%.
And I have to second Becky's recommendation there. I really loved A Marvelous Light as well. It's a really fun, quite different magic system that involves Cat's Cradle. If you've been following Book Break for a while, especially over on Instagram, you may have seen a lot of videos of me learning Cat's Cradle while reading this book. So it's a really, really fun one for Pride. My next recommendation was actually sent in from Olga from the Rights team, who would like to pass on her recommendation for Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, which again, I second that. It's such a good choice. So Our Wives Under the Sea is a very strange, melancholy, but also funny love story. It's about a couple, 2 wives, one of whom goes missing on a deep sea diving mission in a submarine, and no one knows what's happened to her. And we kind of flash back and forwards in time. We follow her on this mission and going down to the depths of the ocean and something terrifying happening. And we also follow her wife several months in the future after she's been missing and then is found and then comes back, but is not the same. So if you've ever wanted to read a lesbian love story about someone's wife turning into a fish, then this is the time to do that. Back to the world of fantasy, Emily is now going to tell you why to read A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland.
So my name is Emily and I'm the publicity assistant for the Pan division here at Pan Macmillan, and I'm here to recommend A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland, which was one of my favorite reads last year. And it's about Kadu, who is a prince in this empire. He is the little brother sort of his sister, who's the queen, and he ends up being sort of not very liked by the queen's husband, which is also the father of the queen's child. And he's sort of a very important man at court. And Calder sort of humiliates himself in front of him and a lot of other people, which makes not a lot of people believe in him anymore. So he gets sent away to sort of make himself sort of be better in this empire. People wants to trust him again, so he gets sent away, and to this mission he gets a bodyguard assigned to him called Evamir, who hates him, absolutely hates him, thinks he's a spoiled prince, he does not like him at all. But as the story unfolds, when he gets sent away to solve this mission, they sort of realize they're not that sort of, they're quite similar in different ways, and they sort of get to know each other, even despite the differences, which is really interesting to me. And when it comes sort of to the tropes, as you can hear, it is enemies to lovers, which I am personally weak for. So that sort of unfolds. There's a lot of angst. It's definitely a slow burn. I don't think you get a lot of action until like maybe there in the book, but it's a very good slow burn. It also has sort of a non-patriarchal society. So in this book, it's the queen that's the most important person, which I found really interesting when they sort of swept those roles around. It also has a lot of different queer representation. There's even an Era Ace character in this book, which I don't feel is represented that much. I really like that. And a lot of the side characters are different sort of queer identities. And there are also a lot of interesting side characters. I feel like all of them I want to have sort of as my friend group, which I liked a lot, especially with this type of sort of fantasy. You should really get that escapism. And it's just sort of an empire where like the queerness is just there. It's not frowned upon or anything like that, which I also liked a lot. This ideal world. It's a lot of ramble.
I love the enthusiasm and I love the sound of that book. So many different characters and such an exciting plot it sounds like in there. So thank you, Emily, for that one. Now Jodie is going to give us a literary recommendation.
I am Jodie Lancet-Grant and I am Associate Publisher at Bluebird. And the book that I am going to recommend is Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna. And there are so many reasons why I love this book. There's quite a big cast of characters and you get lots of different viewpoints from a young woman who's considering leaving London and moving back to Essex because she's pregnant, her gay best friend, her possibly also gay husband, but also their parents who give a completely different perspective. And it just brings to life this heady, hot summer weekend in East London, and it was really gorgeous because of that.
That completely sold it to me. That sounds lush. I love that kind of book. So really great recommendation from Jodie. And finally, I have one more recommendation from the Pride group. This is another one that was sent in. So Annie from Bluebird Marketing would like to recommend to you Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. And this is another book that I have not read yet, but I'm really going to bump it up my TBR for this Pride. This is a queer classic. This has been described to me. Annie has said this is just the book that everyone really should read, that she recommends to everyone she knows. And what I know about this book is that it was published in 1973 and yet is explicitly lesbian, which is really, really cool and really rare. And so that's why this book has meant so much to so many people. So for a classic this Pride Month, that sounds like such a good recommendation. And finally, I'm going to add in 4 suggestions of my own. Some of these are books that I have read and loved myself, and some of them are books that are on my Pride TBR, so we can share in that joy of reading them together. Starting with one of those, I am really excited to read La Vache at First Sight. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling of sorts. It's about 2 women who meet at a food packaging conference, but it turns out that they are from rival families, hence the Romeo and Juliet comparison. So they're sworn enemies, they are competing at this conference to win a prestigious award. All the while their parents are feuding and they have to disguise any growing feelings they might be developing for each other. It's also got Armenian representation, bisexual representation. Really looking forward to reading this. On the complete other end of the scale from a lovely gay romance, we have the story of what happens to a marriage falling apart. So I've got a proof here. This is a really stunning proof of Wife by Charlotte Mendelssohn. I love this detail here. I think that's gorgeous. So this is a tense, unsettling, witty and wonderfully written book about the end of a marriage and a custody battle. So it follows, our main character is splitting up from her wife, and they have a very unusual and very complicated situation with their children, whose biological father is a third parent in the relationship. But it's even more complicated than that, and I won't go into all the reasons because it's kind of a fun twist when you discover how this all came about. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot that is, let's say, misguided about this situation that they have ended up in. And now at the end of their marriage, it is proving unbearable. And so we are following the perspective of one of the wives, who has had her other co-parents completely turn against her. And oh my goodness, I have never read such horrible characters. Charlotte Mendelssohn is very, very good at writing horrible characters. I really loved her books I've read before, like The Exhibitionist, which came out a couple of years ago and had a really terrible patriarch of a family. It's like the most horrible monster that I have read in a book for a long time. And this time it is the ex-wife who takes that cake. She is really, really unpleasant to read, but also so believable and so unsettling. You can really see how she gets people to fall under her spell. So completely different kind of recommendation here, but it's so good. Charlotte Mendelssohn is such a wonderful, observational, sharp, witty writer, and I loved this book even while I was feeling so stressed. A book that went outside my comfort zone genre. I read a vampire book. I read Masters of Death by Olivia Blake, and I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. I actually read this one for the Book Break book club, so there is a lot of video evidence of me reading and loving this book. It's got a lot of different romantic pairings in it, but one of them is a male-male couple, Fox and Brant, who they were the real beating heart, driving force of this book for me. They are manipulating each other. They have betrayed each other. This is a second chance romance. They have a past. They are playing games with each other, but they would do anything for each other. And oh my goodness, my heart was ripped apart and mended back together 1,000 times over by that pair. I just loved them. And finally, a graphic novel, Homebody by Theo Parrish. This is a joyful celebration of what it means to really discover who you really are and feel at home in your own body and your own identity. Theo Parrish is trans and non-binary and knew from quite young that they didn't feel comfortable fitting into any of the boxes or labels that society was trying to force them into. And so Homebody tells their story of their journey of discovery, and it's really uplifting and hopeful because the whole message of this book is that there is really nothing more wonderful than being your true authentic self, and that is what Pride Month is all about. So thank you to my fellow Pride Network colleagues for contributing to this video. It was really fun to get some other book recommendations, some other friendly faces on this channel, and do let me know in the comments below if any of those books have caught your attention or if you have any Pride book recommendations for us. I'll pass them back on and we would be really, really grateful for any recommendations. And of course I will link here to a playlist of all of the other Pride videos that I have made on Book Break over the years. And I will see you next time!